Hi everyone. I hope this Shavuot, this holiday finds you well, in a good health. And just to let you know that here in Israel, we're thinking of you, our sisters and brothers. And I hope that next time we can talk to each other, as it says in the Mount of Sinai, panim bepanim, to really see each other. I've been asked to speak today about the commandment of do not commit adultery. And this commandment is coming inside a 3 commandment of don't steal and don't murder and do not commit adultery, which are the most short verses ever in the Torah. Actually, a verse that holds 2 words only. We know 3 words in a verse, but this is very, very short. This short way tells us that these commandments expose themselves in a very short, straightforward, absolute way. There's no other law, legal system in the ancient world that does not hold any reason or explanation why these commandments are forbidden. And also, even in our modern, postmodern legal system, no punishment, no reward, no explanation, no reason. This is what you should do in a apodictic way, very straightforward. And I want to ask today, is it so clear? Are these commandments are so clear? And I want to follow today, to take you with me on a trip from the biblical law to the Zoharic corpus, which this is my field. I'm a Kabbalah and Hasidut scholar, that expose us to a different meaning or an interesting meaning to this commandment. So we can start from the biblical law, where we see that do not commit adultery has to do with belonging and possession. The location of do not commit adultery between do not murder and do not steal has to do with this. The woman considered to be as a possession and a belonging, and you don't take something that has that you don't own and is not, and that you don't belong. So do not commit adultery is about possession and being owner of somebody else. When we move to the Zohar, we find something very interesting that I want to share to you with you today. And I will start with this, that we know that traditionally the 2 tablets are considered to be from right and from the left. The Decalogue is organized by 5 and 5, which the 5 first one from the right side has to do usually with commandments between you and God, whereas in the left side, it's organized through human obligations between man and his fellow. And we find a very interesting drasha homily in the Zohar that actually says, why is it a 10 decalogue? Let me put the 5 on the 5. Just let's close the tablets on one another, and actually let's locate all the left 5 into the right 5. This kind of organizing differently the decalogue, actually putting the 5 on the first 5 between human being and God, has to do with a strong question that starts with Plato regarding the relationship between ethics and religious decisions, the ethic and the religion. And actually, Plato asks this: does the God commands you to do the morals, the commandments, because they are moral, or the moral are like this because God commands you to do? What's the essence of the moral action or the moral obligation? Is this a religious excuse? Is this a religious framework that holds the human being behaviors? And there's some people that will say that if you actually say that moral behavior has to do with the religious and with the divine, you're actually weakening the essence of the ethic as something that has no dependency whatsoever to the religious, but actually it makes a human being sovereign and being responsible to his deeds, and being strong enough to hold the obligation, to hold the obeying to his own, some would say like Kant, wisdom, or his own legislation. For some others, like the Zohar, this is exactly the opposite, and actually the divine is strengthening and reinforce the human obligations. I can go back to Leviticus 19 and to see that actually Leviticus 19 holds a lot of obligations, a human being obligation, a moral obligations, but each obligation is escorted with the declaration, Ani Hashem, I am your God. And some people see it as actually uplifting the moral activity to say, this is the divine, this is the divine. The divine is when you take care of the orphans and the widows. The divine is when you decide to build a fence around your building to avoid damage and death for vain. The divine is when you are not putting in obstacles in front of a blind person. God within the ethical, okay? And I think it has to do with machloket, dispute between Buber and Kierkegaard. Kierkegaard, the Danish philosopher, described the religion area above the ethical, whereas Buber said, no, the way to God is not just going through the human being. This is the way to God through these moral activities. This is the way, not so much the nature or praying. The ethical is the main path, is the main path to God. Or as Levinas said, you look at the other, his eyes is actually divine. This is the obligation from God that speaks to you from the eyes of your fellow. So if I'm going back to this idea that just stop to think about the relationship between the left side and the right side of the Decalogue, with the Zohar put them together, then something very interesting is happening. We can read the Decalogue like this, and actually find a very interesting linkage and affinities between the right side and the left side. For example, the commandment Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am your God, has to do with the other side, with the left side of Lo Tirtzach, do not commit murder, which actually holds a very interesting and a profound idea of human being as an extension of God, as an icons of God. I want to ask you, if you want to fulfill the commandment of Anochi Hashem Elokecha, what should you do? So actually the Zohar answer, and actually it's a midrash developed by the Zohar, do not murder. See your fellow as a little God walking beside you on earth. This is a godly creation, a human being. This is Tselem Elokim. So this is, for example, something that we can gain from putting these two tablets together. The other one, for example, I can take Shabbat. And Shabbat is coming into a false testimony. Shabbat is about testifying God created the world. I'm sanctifying this day, this time, as a testimony. This is the Kiddush. We stand up and we say a testimony. Another idea that comes up from putting the linkage between the two tablets. Now I will ask, what is the contribution of the Zohar to speak about do not commit adultery, and what is the parallel to do not commit adultery? Then we find that actually the second commandment, you should have no God besides me, is the parallel to do not commit adultery. What does this linkage gives us a new perspective on this commandment. And I think that what we find here is very different from the legal, biblical legal explanation. This is takes the do not commit adultery from the area of belonging, possessing and ownership, and moves it into a kind of a different area, which is be honest, be loyal, do not deceive, do not pretend, do not live a double life. Don't have other God beside me if you committed to be with me exclusively. And I think this is very, very interesting, this kind of comparison between these two areas. And I want to say, what does the Zohar gain by this? First of all, adultery is not about possession, but about a loyalty and honesty. And in this explanation, two sides of the contract, of the covenant, are obligated to this, not just the wife, and as in the biblical system. Secondly, the Zohar actually describes us, puts a different focus. What is the essence? What is the essence of do not commit adultery? And actually, the Zohar says to us, this is not a sexual obligation, and this is not even a contract obligation. It is more about a living honest life. Do not deceive yourself and your partner. Do not, the deficiency, the defect is about living a double life, with secrets and lies. This is something that penetrates into your soul and actually moves you from living a life. The psychoanalyst Winnicott says, what is the spectrum between being happy, not to be hidden, not to be found, and the tragedy or the disaster of not being clear or not being real or not being truthful. And I think this is the do not commit adultery. According to the Zohar, it's about honesty, it's about truth. Live a true life. Live to what your actions and decisions are. Don't live in bipolar way. Don't live in a double life. Don't live in pretending. Don't live in hiding or secrets. And I think this is what the Zohar tried to tell us with this. And I want to add actually to end this discussion with a very interesting reading of the sentence that has to follow exactly the ending of the Decalogue. After God is coming from the cloud and the midst and the fire in the Mount of Sinai, there is a very unique expression in Hebrew that comes, that all the commentaries are telling us that this is actually a double meaning, and I want to share this with you. It says that the words of God spoke to you, assembly in the Mount of midst and fire and cloud and of the thick darkness. And then it says, with a great voice, and he added no more. In Hebrew it says, Kol Gadol, great voice, Velo Yasaf. But in Hebrew, the word Lo Yasaf actually has a double meaning. Lo Yasaf can be add no more, meaning stopped. He stopped the Decalogue. It was written on the tablet. It was given to the people of Israel. And as we say today, this is not the monotheism, but the moral monotheism that Judaism contribute to the world. But it can be also a different idea, and actually the opposite idea, which lo yasaf, meaning it never stopped. The word yasaf is also the root of the word sof, which is end. And when it says kol gadol velo yasaf, it means that God's voice never stopped. Meaning we speak here about an ongoing voice of God that is here with us through the generations, through the history of the Jewish people. And in every generation and every time we can find this kind of great voice, great voice that enable us to be in the world in I would say to upgrade us in the world to different horizons of a better life, of Torat Emet, of Chayei Emet, of Emet, speak Emet on your tongue. I wish all of you great health and happiness and Chag Shavuot Sameach miYerushalayim.